The galaxy was endless, filled with billions of stars. For ages, mighty empires had risen and fallen. Great alien races built shining cities on worlds of metal and glass. Others lived in oceans, in clouds, or in darkness between suns. Yet in this grand galaxy, one small blue planet was almost forgotten. That planet was Earth, home of humanity. To most alien eyes, humans were weak, short-lived, and unimportant. They fought wars among themselves, they struggled with hunger, disease, and greed, but they also dreamed, built, and reached for the stars. And one day, something happened that would change everything. It began with a signal, a message that was not human, not earthly. It came from deep space, from beyond the known stars. At first, scientists thought it was random noise. But the pattern repeated again and again. It was a voice without a voice, a call without words. The signal was waiting for someone to answer. Around the world, scientists gathered in secret. They compared numbers, waves, and strange codes. Some said it was a greeting, others said it was a warning. The governments of Earth became nervous. Military generals whispered about alien traps. Religious leaders spoke of destiny, of judgment from the stars. But one thing was clear: humanity could not ignore it. While humans argued, the galaxy already knew. Across thousands of light years, the signal had spread. The great alien council was watching. In golden halls on distant planets, alien rulers spoke. "The humans have heard the call," said one. "They are not ready," said another. "They must answer, or they will be erased," whispered a third. Back on Earth, the news could not stay hidden. Soon, ordinary people learned about the strange signal. In homes, in schools, in crowded markets, everyone asked the same question. What do we say to the stars? Fear spread, but also excitement. For the first time, humanity felt united. Not as nations, but as one species standing before the galaxy. The signal was strange but beautiful. It pulsed like a heartbeat, slow and steady. Every night, satellites captured the repeating waves. Every morning, scientists searched for meaning. It was as if the galaxy itself was waiting for Earth to decide, waiting for humanity's answer. In the quiet of his small office, a young scientist listened. He was not powerful, not famous, just curious. He believed the message was not a threat but a test. "A question," he whispered. "The galaxy is asking a question." But what was the question? And more important, what was the answer? Nations gathered in great halls. Leaders sat behind shining tables, their faces hard. Some wanted silence, some wanted weapons, some wanted peace, some wanted war. But no one wanted to be the one who stayed quiet. Silence, they feared, would be taken as weakness, and weakness in the galaxy meant death. The world held its breath. The signal kept coming, never changing, never stopping. It was patient, as if time itself did not matter. But for humans, time mattered greatly. They had to act. They had to decide. The question of the stars could not wait forever. On a cold night, the young scientist stood by the radio dish. He looked at the dark sky full of stars. Billions of worlds, billions of unknown eyes, some laughing, some watching, some waiting. He felt small, yet he felt something else. He felt that humanity was not weak, that there was a strength no alien could see yet. The signal pulsed again, steady, endless. The galaxy was waiting, and soon humanity would speak. But what they would say, no one yet knew. Far away from Earth, beyond nebulae of fire and dust, stood the hall of the Great Council. It was not built on any one planet, but floated inside a hollowed asteroid. The walls were carved with glowing stones that shifted like living light. Here, the oldest and strongest civilizations of the galaxy gathered. And tonight they gathered for one reason: humanity. The council chamber was vast, wide enough to hold a small moon. Great banners of alien empires floated in the air like living cloth. Some banners showed suns, others beasts, others only strange symbols unknown to humans. Seated on towering thrones were the rulers of countless species. Their voices echoed in the chamber like thunder, whispers, and storms. The Valorians, tall, beings of crystal, spoke first. The humans have heard the call, and their voice rang like breaking glass. They are fragile, short-lived, without ancient wisdom. Perhaps it is better they never answer at all. The Zalthar, scaled warriors with burning eyes, growled loudly. They fight each other, yet they survive, said the warlord. They adapt to hunger, disease, and war, always returning stronger. They may be small, but small fires can burn great forests. At the far end sat the Xylan, cloaked in shadows. They had no visible face, only shifting black mist. The humans are dangerous, whispered their voice. They do not fear death as we do. They rush into fire, they leap into storms, and they do not stop. The chamber shook as the Car Dominion roared. Their leader was a giant with 6 arms and a crown of iron. We are wasting time, he bellowed. If they answer, we crush them. If they stay silent, we erase them. To us, humans are ants. But not all agreed. From a silver chair, the Sarathi queen raised her voice. Her skin glowed like water under moonlight, her eyes endless and calm. You call them ants, but I see something else, she said. They are a storm yet unborn, and storms grow quickly. If we destroy them now, we make them martyrs. If we watch, we may learn. Murmurs rose in the chamber, countless voices overlapping. Some spoke of fear, some of curiosity, some of greed. The galaxy had seen new species before. Some rose only to be broken, others grew to challenge the ancient powers. The humans were different. Their speed of growth was terrifying. Their machines fly among their stars already, said a small, but sharp voice. It came from the Kaliri, a race of winged scholars. In only one lifetime they leaped from fire to space. In another lifetime, who knows what they may build? Should we welcome them or destroy them before they stand? The council grew louder, voices clashing like storms. Alien eyes glowed, claws struck tables, wings rustled. The galaxy itself seemed to tremble as the debate raged. Humanity, small and unaware, was at the center of it all. Finally, the supreme speaker of the council, a being older than suns, rose from his chair. He was neither flesh nor machine, but something in between. His voice was calm, yet every word carried across the chamber like thunder. The call was sent to them, he said slowly. The call cannot be withdrawn, the test must continue. They must answer, and in their answer the galaxy will judge them. The chamber fell silent. Even the proud warlords and whispering shadows bowed their heads. The decision was final. The humans would speak, and the galaxy would listen. But in the quiet corners of the council, secret plans began. Some plotted alliances, others plotted wars. Spies were sent toward Earth. Fleets prepared in hidden docks. While humanity argued among themselves, the galaxy sharpened its knives. And so, the council ended. Banners lowered, thrones emptied. The stars outside burned brighter as if waiting for history to unfold. The galaxy did not know what the humans would say, but one truth was clear to all. Whatever humanity answered, the galaxy would never be the same. While the great council of aliens ended their meeting among stars, Earth was drowning in chaos. The signal had already spread through every nation, through every city, through every street. At first, governments tried to hide the truth, but secrets could not survive in a world of cameras and whispers. Soon the signal was no longer a mystery for scientists alone. It became a question for all of humanity. In great capitals, leaders argued in endless meetings. The president of one nation slammed his hand on the table, demanding weapons. Another leader begged for peace, warning that one wrong move could doom them all. Generals whispered about fleets they did not yet have. Scientists spoke in codes and equations, searching for meaning in the pulse from the sky. Ordinary people were no less divided. Some prayed to their gods, believing the message was a test of faith. Others celebrated in streets, waving banners of first contact. A few feared invasion, building shelters underground. For the first time, every human heart felt the weight of the same question. News channels played the signal day and night. The strange rhythm echoed through radios, televisions, and even mobile phones. It was like a heartbeat, slow, patient, unchanging. Children listened to it in classrooms. Elders listened to it in silence. The world lived with that sound, and every beat whispered the same thought. What do we say? In a hidden bunker, military minds spoke of preemptive strikes. They believed silence meant weakness, and weakness meant conquest. If we show fear, they will destroy us, said one general. If we show strength, they will think twice, said another. But strength required weapons Earth had not yet built. Humanity was strong in spirit, but weak in technology, and every nation knew it. In shining laboratories, scientists decoded the signal again and again. Some believed it carried maps. Others thought it was only a challenge. One young woman suggested. It was like a door waiting for a key. Another whispered that perhaps the galaxy was waiting for something deeper. Not words, not weapons, but truth. Yet no one could prove it, and confusion only grew. In crowded streets, protests rose. Some shouted, "Answer them now." Others cried, "Stay silent." Fear sparked violence in cities as people accused leaders of hiding the real meaning. Markets crashed. Religions divided. Nations prepared armies. The message of the stars was, not war, but still it had shaken the earth like an earthquake. Far from the noise, in a quiet observatory, a boy stood with his grandfather. They listened to the signal together through an old radio. The boy asked, "Grandfather, what does it mean?" The old man smiled sadly. "It means the universe is asking if we are ready." "But are we?" whispered the boy. The grandfather had no answer. At the United World Assembly, leaders tried to agree. Some demanded Earth stay silent. Others demanded a reply of peace. A few insisted on a reply of warning, promising fire if aliens came too close. But no one trusted the other. No one wanted to let another nation decide for all. The confusion was complete. Unity was a dream, and yet the signal kept pulsing as if mocking their arguments. The young scientist who first believed it was a question sat alone in his office. He wrote on a board, erased and wrote again. If this is a test, then what are they testing? He asked himself, are they testing our fear, or our courage, or our unity? Outside, the world screamed with arguments, but in his heart he felt silence. He felt that the answer was simple, yet no one could see it. Night after night, the signal painted the sky with invisible waves. It was not angry, not impatient, only steady. The stars themselves seemed to lean closer, listening, waiting. Earth, divided and confused, had to choose. Would humanity answer with fear, with silence, or with strength together? The question hung over every home, every soldier, every scientist, every child. And though the world was confused, the galaxy was patient, for the galaxy already knew what was coming. But Earth did not yet. The world was drowning in arguments, but out of the noise a single voice began to rise. It did not belong to a king or a president, not to a general or a rich man. It belonged to a young scientist named Elias Karev, unknown to most, ignored by many. He was quiet, thoughtful, with eyes that always searched the stars. And though he had no throne, no army, no crown, he carried something far greater. An idea. Elias worked in a modest laboratory near the mountains. While leaders shouted in great halls, he listened to the signal in silence. Every pulse felt like a heartbeat, every rhythm like a question. And one night, as the signal repeated again and again, Elias understood. The galaxy is not asking about our weapons, he whispered. It is asking who we are. The next morning, Elias stood before the Council of Scientists. His voice shook at first, for he was young and surrounded by men and women twice his age, but his words carried a power that silenced them all. You search for codes, for numbers, for threats, he said, but the signal is not a puzzle, it is an invitation. They want to know if we can stand as one. At first, the room erupted in disagreement. Some laughed, calling him naive. Others grew angry, demanding proof. But Elias did not step back. His eyes burned brighter. War is not our answer, he declared. Fear is not our answer. Our answer must be unity, for that is our only strength. The idea spread slowly, like fire through dry grass. Other scientists began to listen, then teachers, then ordinary people. News networks carried his words, first mocking, then curious, then serious. And for the first time, humanity heard something different from fear. They heard a voice calling not for silence, not for weapons, but for courage together. In classrooms, children repeated his words. In markets, merchants whispered them. Even soldiers holding rifles in their hands found themselves wondering, if unity was the only answer, why had no leader spoken it before? Why had it taken a young man, unknown and small, to see what others could not? Leaders were not quick to accept him. Pride in politics built walls taller than any mountain. Presidents and kings did not like the thought of a boy shaping the fate of the world, but even they could not ignore the growing echo, for every day, more people repeated Elias's idea, and soon entire crowds filled the streets shouting not for war, not for silence, but for one voice. Elias was brought before the United World Assembly, the great hall where leaders argued endlessly. The chamber was hot with anger, heavy with suspicion. But when Elias walked to the center, the noise faded. He looked at them all. Generals, ministers, rulers, scholars, wherein he spoke. "You fear the galaxy," he said, his voice steady now. "You fear that they see us as weak, as divided, as children. But listen, the only way we fall is if we stay divided. If we answer together, then no empire, no warlord, no shadow in the stars can break us." Some laughed still, some frowned, but others leaned forward, listening. For deep in their hearts, even the proudest leaders knew the truth of his words. Weapons they could build, but unity they could not force. It had to be chosen. It had to begin with one voice. And so, humanity began to shift, slowly, painfully but surely. Old enemies began to speak. Old borders began to weaken. The fear of the galaxy was great, but the hope of survival was greater. And at the center of it all was a young man with no power but his belief. A belief that humanity's true answer could only be spoken if they stood as one. The signal pulsed. Again that night, steady, endless waiting. And for the first time, Earth's reply was no longer silence or confusion. It was the rising voice of humanity. A voice not of kings or weapons, but of unity. A voice ready to be heard by the stars. The world had argued. The world had feared. But now the world had chosen. The young scientist's words had spread like a spark in dry grass, from streets to schools, from villages to great capitals. The call for unity grew louder. Leaders could no longer silence it. Generals could no longer deny it. The time had come for humanity to answer the galaxy. In a great chamber filled with screens and wires, the United World Assembly gathered. Presidents, kings, ministers, soldiers, and scientists sat side by side. For the first time in history, they were not separated by borders. For the first time, they were not speaking for nations but for Earth. The room was silent, every ear waiting, every heart beating with the rhythm of the signal. Elias Karev stood at the center, his hands trembling slightly. He was no longer just a scientist, no longer just a young man. He had become the voice of an idea, the symbol of hope. But even symbols could feel fear. He looked at the leaders and then at the glowing signal repeating on the screen, and he whispered, "We must be clear. We must be strong. We must be human." Debates had gone on for weeks. Should humanity speak of peace or speak of strength? Should they beg for safety or warn of fire? But Elias reminded them of one truth. Our strength is not in our weapons, it is in our unity. And slowly the leaders nodded, not all, but enough to agree that Earth's first reply would be short, powerful, unforgettable. At midnight, the great radio towers of Earth turned their eyes to the stars. Dishes the size of cities rotated, beams of energy gathered. In deserts, on mountains, deep in oceans, antennas aligned like soldiers ready for war. But there was no war cry. Only a message that would be carried on waves of light across the galaxy. The technicians counted down, their voices tight with fear. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then the words, chosen by all, spoken for all, were released into the stars. We are ready. The message was simple, only 3 words. But inside those words was everything humanity had carried. Centuries of struggle, centuries of war, centuries of dreams and hopes. The galaxy would hear, not fear, not silence, but readiness. Humanity had spoken across Earth. Billions listened as the message was broadcast. In crowded cities, cheers erupted. In small villages, people cried. Children clapped their hands. Soldiers stood taller. For the first time, humanity felt united. For the first time, they felt they were not many nations, but one world. But in the silence that followed, fear crept back. What would the galaxy say? Would they laugh at the boldness of such a young species? Would they send fire and fleets in reply? Or would they listen, truly listen to the courage hidden in 3 small words? Above Earth, satellites hummed, their sensors wide open. Across deserts and oceans, scientists waited by their machines. In military bases, soldiers held their breath, fingers tight on triggers. Every person on Earth, no matter their language or land, looked at the stars and waited. The answer might take days or weeks or even years, but the waiting was already heavy. In the great council of aliens, the message reached like thunder. Banners shook, voices rose, the chamber filled with disbelief. 3 words, that is all? Laughed the warlord of the Car Dominion. Arrogant children, hissed the shadowed Xylan, but others did not laugh. Others grew silent, for they heard in the words not arrogance, but defiance, not weakness, but something dangerous, something they had not expected from such a small world. Back on Earth, Elias stood under the night sky. He watched the stars, whispering to himself, "They have heard us now." And though he was afraid, he also felt something else, a sense that humanity had crossed a line, that the galaxy could never again pretend Earth was silent. Humanity had answered, and the universe was listening. The message traveled through the dark between stars. It crossed nebulae glowing like fire. It passed dead worlds of ice. It echoed in stations of steel. And everywhere it went, the same 3 words arrived. We are ready. In the great council chamber, silence fell at first. The words floated across the air like a storm waiting to break. For a moment, no one moved, no one spoke. And then the chamber erupted. The Car Dominion warlord struck his iron fists against the table. Ready? They are insects, nothing more, he thundered. They have no fleets, no armies, no shields. They are not ready for anything. His 6 arms shook with rage, but his eyes glowed with unease. For deep inside, even he knew courage when he heard it. The Valorians, crystal beings of light, sang in cold voices. They speak boldly, but words are cheap. They do not know what it means to be tested. They do not know what it means to be broken. Yet their glowing edges flickered, a sign of doubt they did not show before. The Xylan, shadows without faces, whispered from the dark. They are strange. Their voice echoed like wind. Through empty halls, no other young species would dare answer with defiance. They should have begged or stayed silent, but instead they claim readiness. They are either fools or something far more dangerous. The Sarathi queen sat still, her silver skin shining in the light of the chamber. She smiled, faintly though her eyes were sharp. I warned you, she said softly. The humans are not ants. They are storms waiting to grow. Only storms dare speak in thunder before they are born. The chamber shook again as voices clashed. Some shouted that humans must be destroyed before they grew stronger. Others argued that they should be tested, pushed, watched. But beneath the noise, one truth gnawed at every mind. The humans had not spoken with fear, they had spoken with certainty. And certainty was dangerous beyond the council. Across alien empires, the message spread like fire. On worlds of ice, merchants whispered of human boldness. On floating cities above gas giants, children repeated the words in their games. On ships crossing ancient trade routes, captains frowned as they thought of Earth. Everywhere, the words were repeated. We are ready. And in the quiet corners of the galaxy, whispers turned into questions. What makes them ready? Asked a soldier of the Dralith legions. They have no fleets, no shields, no great empire, answered another. Then why do They speak as if they do? The soldier asked again. No one had an answer. The supreme speaker of the council sat high above the chamber, his ancient form unmoving, his voice deep as stone. The call has been answered, he said. The test continues. But in his long years he had seen many young species rise and fall, and something about this answer, short yet unshaken, left even him unsettled. Doubt spread like cracks through stone. If humans were weak, why did they not beg? If they were afraid, why did they not hide? If they were fools, why did their words echo with such strength? Every answer led only to more questions, and the galaxy hated questions without answers. Back on Earth, the people celebrated, but far away the council planned. Some prepared fleets, others prepared spies. Some believed humans must be crushed, others believed they must be studied, but all agreed on one thing. Humanity had stepped into the arena of the stars, and now the galaxy could not look away. The Sarathi Queen's final words lingered in the chamber as the meeting ended. She looked at the stars on the great screen and whispered, "They think they are ready. But the question is not if they are ready. The question is if the galaxy is ready for them. The galaxy does not trust words alone. Words are wind. They fade, they vanish. But strength leaves marks. Strength writes history." And so the Great Council decided humanity must be tested. No warning came to Earth, no invitation of peace. Instead, the stars above grew heavy with silence, and then one night the silence broke. Satellites picked up movement beyond the edge of the solar system. A fleet was coming. The ships were vast, older than Earth's nations. They carried banners of the Kar Dominion, the warlike empire that ruled with fire and steel. Each ship was a mountain of metal, glowing with weapons older than humanity's. First machines. They moved without hurry, without fear, like predators certain of their prey. The test had begun. On Earth, panic returned like a storm. Screens across the world showed the incoming fleet. News channels screamed of invasion. Markets collapsed, armies scrambled, people filled the streets again, crying, praying, shouting. But this time, there was no silence from the leaders. This time they could not wait. In the halls of power, generals spread maps of the stars. Scientists calculated numbers with shaking hands. Some leaders shouted to surrender before the fleet reached Earth. Others demanded nuclear fire against the sky. But one truth pressed upon them all. Humanity had spoken, and now humanity must stand. Elias Karev sat at the long table of the United World Assembly. His voice was quieter than the shouting generals, yet it carried farther. "They are testing us," he said. "If we bow, if we surrender, then our words mean nothing. If we fight, even if we fall, then our words have weight." He looked at them all and asked, "Will we show them fear, or will we show them who we are?" The room fell silent, the question heavier than any weapon. Slowly, one leader nodded, then another, then another. At last, the world agreed. Earth would stand. The order went out to every base, every shipyard, every soldier. Rusting space stations were armed with new weapons. Old rockets were pulled from storage, polished, and fitted for battle. Factories roared with life as workers built defenses day and night. And though Earth had no mighty fleets, it had something else. Billions of voices burning with one will. Families sent food to soldiers, engineers worked without sleep, pilots trained in skies and seas, preparing to fly into stars. Even children painted signs that read, "For Earth, for all of us." The planet moved as one, not fast, not perfect, but united. And in unity, there was strength, far above. The alien fleet drew closer. They did not hide. They did not rush. For them, the test was simple, to see if humans stood or broke. The galaxy watched from 1,000 worlds. Merchants paused in markets. Kings leaned from thrones. Children whispered under strange skies. All waited to see how Earth would answer steel. At last, the day came. The alien fleet crossed the edge of the solar system. Their shadows fell across Neptune, then Uranus, then Saturn, and soon their weapons were aimed at the small blue planet. But between Earth and the invaders rose human ships. Not perfect, not grand, but defiant. The first human fleet in history stood like a wall of fireflies before mountains. Every pilot knew the odds. Every soldier knew the cost. But still they waited. Still they stood. And as the alien fleet approached, Elias whispered the words again, "We are ready." The test had begun, and the galaxy leaned closer to watch. The alien fleet crossed the dark of space like a storm, each ship a fortress, each weapon a star waiting to burn. The Car Dominion had sent only a fraction of their power, yet even that was enough to crush worlds. They expected fear. They expected surrender. They expected silence. But what they saw waiting before them was something else. Human ships, small and thin, rose from Earth's orbit like sparks from a fire. They were not polished. They were not perfect. They were not mighty. Some were old rockets refitted with weapons. Others were new crafts built in desperate speed. But they carried men and women with eyes that did not look away. They carried humanity's will. In command, stations across Earth, generals held their breath. On farms and in cities, families watched the skies with trembling hearts. In schools, children sat quiet, listening to the heartbeat signal still echoing from the stars. And in every soul there was the same thought: this is the moment. The alien fleet slowed, their massive ships blocking the sun for a heartbeat of time. Then the speakers of the Car Dominion roared across frequencies, their voice deep and cruel. "Earth, you claim you are ready," they said. "Show us, or be erased." In his seat on a human cruiser, Elias Karev listened to the voice. He had no weapons, no armor, no crown. But his presence reminded every pilot why they were here, not to prove they were the strongest, but to prove they would not kneel. He spoke into the radio, his voice steady. "Hold your line no matter what comes." The first test began. A single alien ship broke formation and fired a blast of energy across the void. It was a warning shot, powerful enough to melt mountains. But the human ships did not scatter. They did not run. They stayed, engines steady, weapons armed, shields glowing faintly. The line held. On distant worlds, alien watchers leaned closer. They expected fear. They expected chaos. But they saw order. Tiny ships against giants, but tiny ships that did not move. And whispers began to spread through markets and palaces. "Perhaps the humans are truly ready." The car warlord laughed, though his laugh was uneasy. "Foolish creatures," he growled. "Let us see if they can hold against more." And with a wave of his 6 arms, the fleet advanced. The sky above Earth lit with fire. Energy beams tore across space. Human shields groaned, metal cracked. One by one, ships shook, alarms screamed, but still they stood. Every pilot remembered the words spoken on Earth: "We are ready." And so, even as ships burned, they did not break formation. On Earth, the people cried as they watched screens. Every spark in the sky was a son, a daughter, a brother, a friend. But when they saw the human line still holding, still standing against giants, hope burned brighter than fear. For the first time, humanity saw itself not as weak but as unyielding. The alien fleet paused, surprised. They had expected quick collapse, a storm crushing insects. But the insects had bared teeth, the insects had drawn blood, and in their silence, the galaxy understood something. Humanity's strength was not in size, not in ships, not in weapons. It was in standing when standing seemed impossible. The Sarathi queen watched from her palace of silver seas. Her voice was soft but sharp as she whispered, "The storm has begun. The humans do not step back, they step forward." Back in the human fleet, Elias gripped the arm of his chair. His heart thundered, fear gnawed at him, but deeper than fear burned resolve. He whispered the words again, words now carried by every ship, every soldier, every human heart. "We are ready." And so, in the vast silence of space, Earth's small fleet stood against the empire of giants. A line of sparks before a storm, yet sparks that refused to die. Humanity had made its stand, and the galaxy could no longer look away. The alien fleet moved like thunder across the void. Their weapons glowed with the heat of 1,000 suns. The Car Dominion had tested countless species before, breaking them in hours. They expected humanity to scatter, to fall, to vanish into silence, but instead humanity stood. The first strike came like lightning. A beam of energy tore through the black, striking a human frigate. The ship cracked, fire spilling into space, its crew lost in the flames. Earth cried out in sorrow, but the line did not break. Another ship filled the gap, refusing to retreat. Human. Cannons roared in reply. Old rockets screamed through the void, guided by hands steady with courage. They struck against alien shields, sparks flashing like stars colliding. The damage was small, almost nothing against giants of war. But for the first time in history, humanity had drawn blood in the stars. The Car warlord leaned forward on his throne, his 6 arms tightening. "Interesting," he growled, his teeth sharp with hunger. "They fight like cornered beasts. Let us see how long they last." He ordered his fleet forward. Dozens of alien warships surged together, their guns spitting fire. The sky above Earth became a battlefield of light. Explosions rippled across the black. Human ships shuddered. Alien shields flared. Every second felt like an eternity. Every spark, another life lost. But the humans fought as if the stars themselves belonged to them. They did not flee. They did not bow. They stood in his command seat. Elias Karev felt the ship shake. Alarms screamed, smoke filled the air. But his voice remained calm. "Hold your line," he said into the radio. "Do not let them break us." His words carried through static, reaching every pilot, every soldier, every ship. And so the line held. On Earth, billions watched with wide eyes. Children clutched. Their parents, soldiers on the ground, raised fists to the sky. Every explosion was grief, but every second the human fleet survived was victory. Hope burned in hearts that had once known only fear, and whispers began to rise across the world. "We are strong. We are together." But the price was heavy. Ship after ship fell, crews vanishing into the black. Yet even as numbers shrank, the line never collapsed. The Car Dominion had expected an easy test, but what they faced was something new. A species that refused to break. Across the galaxy, watchers leaned closer. Merchants in distant markets stopped their trade to listen. Children on alien worlds whispered the words, "We are ready." In their own tongues, kings in golden palaces frowned, wondering if the humans might be more than insects after all. The story of the clash spread faster than fire. The Car warlord slammed his fist in anger. "These creatures should have fallen by now," he roared. But in his eyes was something he did not admit. Doubt. The humans were not winning. Not yet, but they were not losing either. And in battle, survival against giants was already a victory. Human ships pushed forward, using clever tricks. They hid behind asteroids. They split formations. They struck and vanished. Old weapons became traps. Small fighters darted like wasps. And though the losses were heavy, the enemy began to feel pressure. For the first time in centuries, the Car Dominion hesitated. "On Earth," Elias whispered to himself as the stars burned, "this is only the beginning." And though his voice was soft, the galaxy felt the truth of it. Humanity had not come to the stars as servants or as slaves. They had come as fighters, as dreamers, as one people standing together. The clash in the stars raged on, but no matter what came next, one fact could never be erased. The humans had stood against giants, and they had not fallen. The galaxy had seen their fire, their courage, their defiance, and nothing would ever be the same again. The battle burned across the black of space. Human ships shattered like glass. Alien cannons roared like thunder. Yet the line still held. Thin, broken, bleeding but alive. Every second humanity survived was already a miracle. And then came the moment no one expected. A small human ship, barely more than a scout vessel, darted forward. Its engines screamed, its shields flickered, but it did not stop. The alien warship it faced was 10 times its size, glowing with weapons. The humans fired a single missile, old, imperfect, forgotten technology. The warship laughed at such weakness, until the missile split into 100 tiny fragments. The fragments struck like sparks, piercing through cracks in the alien shield. One hit the fuel core, another the weapon banks. The mighty ship trembled, light burst from within, and in a flash, The warship exploded, a giant brought down by an insect. The galaxy gasped across alien worlds. Silence spread like fire. The invincible had been wounded. The unbreakable had been broken by humans, by a race barely crawling into the stars. The car warlord roared in fury, his 6 arms shaking. "Impossible," he shouted, yet the flames on his screen said otherwise. Human fleets cheered, their voices echoing across radios. For the first time, victory felt real, not just survival. Other small ships copied the trick, striking with creativity. They turned weakness into strength, turning simple weapons into clever traps. And soon, more alien ships began to burn. Elias Karev sat in the command chair, his heart racing. He whispered, "They expected strength of metal, but they did not expect strength of mind." Humans were outnumbered, outgunned, outmatched, but they were unpredictable. They were inventive, and invention was a weapon no empire could prepare for. The clash grew fiercer, the stars filled with fire. Human fighters darted between giant cruisers, planting charges. Old satellites, once useless, were turned into bombs. Even destroyed ships were used as shields by their allies. Every trick, every sacrifice turned into one more blow against the giants. On Earth, billions shouted in joy as news spread. Children danced in streets. Soldiers saluted the skies. Families wept for the lost, but cheered for the living. For the first time, humanity did not see itself as prey. They saw themselves as warriors. Standing in the arena of the galaxy, the Car Dominion could not understand it. They had faced mighty fleets, ancient enemies, gods of war, but never had they faced a people who fought with nothing but will. The warlord growled in disbelief. "Why do they not break? Why do they not yield?" The Sarathi queen, watching from afar, answered softly, "They fight because they must. They fight because they are together. And together, even the smallest flame can burn a forest." Her words spread among allies and rivals alike, and doubt grew deeper in the hearts of the powerful. At last, the car fleet pulled back, not defeated, not destroyed, but shaken. They had come to test insects, but instead they found wolves. And for the first time in ages, the Dominion hesitated before striking again. They left the field, leaving behind wreckage and silence. Human ships, broken and burning, still floated in formation. The survivors raised their voices, weak but unyielding. "We are ready," they repeated, the words now carved into the stars themselves. It was not a complete victory, but it was not a defeat either. It was something far more dangerous to the galaxy: proof. Proof that humanity could stand. Proof that they could fight. Proof that they could win. And across the galaxy, whispers turned into warnings. The young species of Earth had faced giants and lived. The unexpected had become truth, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The battle was over. The stars were quiet again. Burning wrecks drifted in the dark, human and alien alike. The silence that followed was heavier than the noise of war, for in that silence lived a truth the galaxy could no longer ignore. Humanity had stood against giants and survived. On Earth, people filled the streets, their voices rising like thunder. They mourned the fallen, but their grief carried pride. For every loss was not in vain. Every sacrifice had written history. Children pointed at the sky not with fear, but with wonder. And for the first time, the world saw itself not as many nations, but as one. In the Great Council of Aliens, the chamber shook with arguments. Some shouted that humanity must be crushed before they grew stronger. Others whispered that such defiance could not be broken, without great cost. But above all the voices, one question echoed. What if they are not insects? What if they are something more? The car warlord roared, his fury endless. "They insulted us, they hurt us, they must be destroyed," he bellowed. But even he felt the weight of doubt, for in his long history of conquest, few had ever dared to stand, and fewer still had. Ever drawn blood, the Sarathi queen spoke calmly, her voice like silver water. "You fear them because you cannot understand them," she said. "They are fragile, yet they do not break. They are small, yet they fight like storms. Perhaps the galaxy should listen before it burns." The Supreme Speaker rose, his ancient form glowing with authority. "The test has ended," he declared. "The humans have answered, not with silence, not with fear, but with fire. Their words were true. They are ready. And the chamber fell silent, for no one could deny it. Back on Earth, Elias Karev stood before the United World Assembly. His face was tired, his body worn, but his eyes burned with resolve. The hall was filled with leaders, soldiers, and survivors, and, beyond them, billions of humans watched on screens waiting for his words. He spoke softly, yet his voice carried across the world. "We were tested," he said. "They expected us to bow, to beg, to hide. But we stood, we fought, we endured. Our strength is not in weapons or in ships, it is in unity. When we stand together, no empire can silence us." The hall erupted in cheers, the sound rolling like thunder across the earth. But Elias raised his hand, calling for silence once more. "Let this be our message to the stars," he said. "We are not conquerors, but we will not be conquered. We are not endless, but we will never stop. We are humanity, and we are ready." His words were sent again into the sky, carried by satellites, carried by beams of light. The signal spread across the stars, echoing in alien halls, drifting into alien dreams. And for the first time, the galaxy did not laugh. The galaxy did not doubt. The galaxy listened. On distant worlds, children repeated the words in their games. On trading routes, merchants spoke them in hushed tones. In thrones and palaces, rulers thought long and hard about the cost of underestimating. Earth and across the galaxy, a new story began to spread. The story of a small blue planet that had answered the call. Elias looked once more at the stars, his heart filled with both fear and hope. He knew the battles were not over, he knew the galaxy was still dangerous, but he also knew a truth no one could take away, that humanity was no longer silent, no longer unseen, no longer weak. The galaxy had heard their answer, and the stars would never be the same.